Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we are going to talk about the 10 cards from previous sets that benefit the most from set 4. So, shout out to the sponsor of this video, Card Market, the biggest marketplace for buying and selling cards in Europe. So, we are indeed going to start by doing the 10 cards that were already good and are getting better with set 4. So I wanted to separate the two, the card that were bad and now became good thanks to set 4, and the card that were already good because they're really benefiting to different degrees to the set. So I didn't want to put them in the same list, so I'm going to do two separate lists. So you guys are getting two top 10 videos in one, which is pretty cool. Anyways, we're going to start first with a couple of honorable mentions. I'm going to start with Avenger. Avenger is one of the best capital ship in the game, and obviously the fact that now we have a leader that discounts capital ship strongly means that Avenger is going to be a great card in those Piet deck. It's also a deck that benefits from Palpatine Blue becoming stronger because of 35 HP base. So it's a card I already saw some play and is going to benefit from the set to some degree. The other card I want to talk about is Surprise Strike. Surprise Strike has been for a very long time one of the best yellow cards in the game, and it feels like in this meta more than in any other meta, it's gonna be a really key card because we are in a very racing based meta where really trying to attack and kill the opponent as quickly as possible is gonna be very important. And Surprise Strike is one of the best racing cards in the game, so it's in my opinion one of the greatest finishers that really make the difference between you losing and winning an aggro mirror or a matchup that is very, very tight. So the fact that now with set 4 we are as much, almost 50-50 between the space arena and the ground arena, makes that Surprise Strike is going to be more difficult to stop, as units, I feel like units live longer in this meta compared to the other meta, because before you could very easily trade your unit with the opponent units to prevent them from having ball presence. Now it's a bit more difficult because often, because we are once again 50-50 between space and ground, you're going to be on the ground, your opponent is going to be on the space. That happens way more often in this set than it used to because there's more space units, which means that you're going to be more often in racing situation, which does make Surprise Strike a stronger card. Moving on now to our number 10, I decided to put Cup Veins. Cup Veins is a great card. In combination with Thrawn, it's probably one of the strongest when defeated effect. That occurs that early in the game. Being able to get a 2-drop for free is very powerful, and get to select it out of 10 cards is very deep, which allows you some really good card selection. And this card is only going to get better as we are getting better 2-drop. But really, what makes this card particularly interesting in this set is the fact that you get to trigger it twice. With Thrawn, if you ever want to play, and if you ever want to try Thrawn Green, in my opinion, Cup Veins is one of the best way to use it. Cup Veins was already a strong card, but I believe he's going to see more play this set. And if you want to see in which kind of deck I like to use this card, you can check out my previous video where I put down a Thrawn Green list now, and I expose it and I kind of explain the jinx of it, and just being able to double this one defeat effect in my opinion is very powerful. In my number 9, I decided to put Merciless Contest in the same idea as for Cup Veins. Now that with Thrawn you have the ability to double down on any when defeated effect. That makes obviously killing your own unit sometimes become very important. So you're playing a Thrawn deck and you are desperate for healing, you got an Onyx TIE Fighters in play, you want to kill your own Onyx to year 4, this is something that happens quite often, and basically being able to kill your own unit is an upside in some situation, which does make Merciless Contest, which was almost strictly speaking like an art control card that you were supposed to play in a deck where you don't run any units. Now you're going to be seeing this card more often as a way to kill your own units to try to get double value from them. Whenever you're playing Thrawn once again. In number 8, there's Heroic Sacrifice. This card has great synergy with one of the best leaders in the set. Obviously, with Kazuda, you can actually turn off the ability, which means that whenever you deal combat damage defeated, So that means that you basically get +2/+0, you draw a card for 1 resources, and you don't suffer the downside of having to defend your own units, which is very powerful, and it fits perfectly in what the Kazuda deck are trying to do, which is trying to be very aggressive, empty their hand very quick, so the draw becomes very handy as well. So if there's one big reason to be running Kazuda Red, Heroic Sacrifice is definitely one of them. It's probably the biggest reason to be running the red version of Kazuda. And it is also a card that I think is going to be relevant in Poe. If you are playing the new Poe, you want to find ways to kill your unit that has the pilot equipped on it, so then you can kill your own pilot, and this way you get to be able to deploy the pilot, deploy Poe on the ground. So that's another kind of cool little application for Heroic Sacrifice for a Poe Dameron deck. So, and it's also just a card that has consistently seen play in Star Wars Limited. But yeah, and there's and he's gonna see even more play, I feel like, in this set for those 2 reasons. Next we got Rebel Assault. So Rebel Assault, I'm putting Rebel Assault on this list for 2 reasons. The first one is because we are getting way more Rebels in this set, which means that Rebel Assault is going to be more consistent, as obviously there's lots of great powerful Rebels that have been printed in the set, which make the card easier to play. And the other reason is the same reason as I put Surprise Strike in the honorable mention, is like we are in a very, very racing meta, and Rebel Assault is one of the best racing cards in the game. Be able to attack with 2 units at once is incredibly relevant in the aggro mirror, and Rebel Assault has consistently been one of the most powerful card in the mirror of aggro, and I think it's going to be even more true in this set. So if you haven't followed what I was saying about Surprise Strike, well, I think the meta is going to be very, very racing, because there's going to be more arena dodges than it used to be, because now decks are composed of 50% between space and ground, which means that we are more often than before in situations where units are not really interacting with each other and they're just hitting base and trying to race. And Rebel Assault is really, really powerful in those kind of situations. Moving on, I got 2 units that I kind of put on the same spot here, because they kind of do both something similar. It is Confiscates and Disabling Flying Fighters. Obviously, the new pilots are pretty strong, notably the leader pilots, and which means that we're going to see a lot more upgrades seeing play in competitive. And some of those upgrades, of course, the pilot upgrades are extremely high value whenever you're able to defeat them, which means that inevitably we're going to see more upgrade defeat effects, whether it's going to be in the main deck or in the sideboard, which means that obviously 2 of the best the defeat upgrades cards in previous sets were obviously Disabling Flying Fighters and Confiscates. So those 2 cards are really benefiting from that, and I expect them to see more play in this meta than they used to. Maybe we're going to be in a meta where because of those cards exist, we're not going to see the pilot leaders seeing that much play, but regardless, they're going to have a bigger impact on the meta than they ever had. Next, we got Ruthless Raider. Ruthless Raider, believe it or not, actually did not see that much play in set 1 and in set 2. It was kind of a niche card. It saw a little bit more play like at the end of set 2 when people started playing Boba Red, the old Boba Red, but then really the popularity of this card has exploded, of course, with Django. And I expect this to be even more true in set 4 for multiple reasons. Obviously, Django is more powerful than ever. It is, in my opinion, the deck to beat right now, and it is going to be even more powerful than it used to be. But not only that, Ruthless Raider has the good idea to be a capital ship. That means it interacts very, very well with Piet, which is also one of the strongest leaders in the set. So basically, Ruthless Raider is going to be one of the best cards in 2 of the most powerful archetypes in the game. It's very strong. Anytime you were playing a triple Dark Raid and you're playing red, you're going to be putting Ruthless Raider and triple Dark Raid in there, and this might expand even beyond simply playing Django. Even the new Boba indirect damage deck is going to run this as well. So Ruthless Raider is as basically went from a solid card in set 1 and set 2 to an absolute staple in just because of its combination with triple Dark Raid and Django Fett, which is pretty incredible. What a change of what a comeback here for Ruthless Raider, I would say, because remember guys, this card barely saw, and it was really, really niche in set 1. Not many people were running it. Number 4, we got Sneak Attack. So basically, Sneak Attack is going to become more popular for the same reason as Ruthless Raider. It combines very well with Ruthless Raider. So if Ruthless Raider becomes more popular, then Sneak Attack also becomes more popular. We're in a very, very fast meta, very aggressive, very racy, and Sneak Attack is very, very good in those kind of situations. So I anticipate Sneak Attack to see even more play than it used to, as it's a great way to get some extra punch. Number 3, we got the Devastator. So Devastator is obviously a card that in the past I would have never imagined a deck that could run more than 2 copies of Devastator in its 60 cards. And the reason for it is because it's obviously one of the most expensive cards in the game. It's very rare situations where you would ever want to run more than 2 copies. But now we're seeing decks that actually not only want to run 2 copies, but basically never side them out because they're just too important for the archetype. And I'm obviously talking about Piet. Devastator is one of the most powerful card you can cheat out in play, Piet. Playing a Devastator, the old Devastator for a discount of 2 resources is absolutely insane. Being able to play it for 8 is insanely impactful. And you can do this relatively easy with Piet, and obviously with the ramp, that means you get to play the card almost 3 turns earlier than what you should be, and that's just incredibly powerful. And even if so the ability becomes less powerful as if you play it early on, then you get to only deal 8 damage instead of 10, but to be fair, 8 damage is more than enough to kill the vast majority of the cards in the game, especially when it comes down at 8 resources. So this card is absolutely incredible, and it's going to see a lot more play with set 3. Another card that really strongly benefits from set 4, is Overwhelming Barrage. So Barrage, I always consider Barrage to be the best card in Star Wars Limited, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to change my mind in set 4. This card is getting so much stronger in set 4 because now you have the ability, of course, with Piet to play card much earlier. There's not only Piet, there's also, of course, Count Dooku, who can cheat like very, very large units very, very fast in the game. In this aggro meta where there's a lot of squishy units in play, Barrage is better than ever. It's such an amazing card, and it is, once again, this ability to cheat out those massive space units very early on makes a Barrage better than they ever been. So this card is just getting that much better in this new set. And then my number 1 is obviously the obvious one, is Triple Dark Raid. Triple Dark Raid is getting so much better in this set because obviously we're getting much more vehicles. Mind you, in set 3, there were only 2 cards that really combined very, very well with Triple Dark Raid, and they were 2 in 2 separate colors. And those 2 cards were basically Ruthless Raider and then Reinforcement Walker. They were kind of like the only 2 cards that really benefited heavily from Triple Dark Raid. Then there's a couple of cards that was kind of cool, like for example, if you have an Imperial unit, I guess TIE Advance was kind of nice, but even then was not really getting the full value. Triple Dark Raid on Fire Spray was okay, but not amazing. Now we got so many more cards that benefit from Triple Dark Raid. We got, of course, the resupply ship that does very well. We got the new Invisible Hand, which is amazing with Triple Dark Raid. And we obviously also has the War Juggernaut. So there's just so much going on with all those vehicles. It was to be expected that in a vehicle-based set, Triple Dark Raid would become more powerful, but the fact that this card was already considered one of the best cards in the game, when it had very, very little synergies, and now that it has a lot ton, it's going to be a huge reason to be playing Yellow-Black. It's going to be an absolute staple and one of the best rare in the game, in the entire game. So it's just an amazing card. I'm expecting this card to obviously become, it's pretty much supposed to be at its peak of its power right now. And obviously as we're going to be moving away from vehicles in the next set, or at least moving away a little bit, I'm expecting maybe, it's still going to get better and better, I guess, but it's not going to be, but the fact that we're getting such a massive influx of vehicle really inflates the power of the cards. We'll see if this is momentarily or not. Yeah, so that was basically my list of the 10 cards that are already good that really gets even better with set 4, and now we're gonna get into the bad cards that are now playable. Really, one of the joy of having a new set is not only getting a new influx of new cards, but also giving new life to existing cards that used to be bad, that used to be unplayable, now can become playable and sometimes even potentially good. So I'm not pretending that most of those cards are going to see competitive play, but at least now there's a reason to run them, and there's a couple of decks in which it makes sense to play them. So once again, I'm not saying those cards are going to be competitive or anything. I'm just saying they are getting a lot better with set 4, and they, in my opinion, come in the realm of playability as far as competitiveness is concerned. So we start off with a couple of honorable mentions. So first we talk about Separatist Commando, simply because as far as there's not that many 2-drop droids, and as far as the 2-drop droid is concerned, is actually a pretty good one you can pull from Invisible Hand. So Invisible Hand is basically making Separatist Commando a playable card now, because it just you need a critical mass of those 2 cost droids to be able to fully benefit from the Invisible Hand, which is such a great card. Count Dooku, in the context of a Thrawn red deck with a lot of units with when defeated effect, you need to have a way to sacrifice your own units to be able to double the trigger the when defeated effect. Count Dooku can do that for you. He can exploit those units, put a body on the field, and kill an opponent units, which is quite powerful. There's also another card that really benefits from Count Dooku from Thrawn is obviously Battle Droid Legion. It's at the same time it's an enabler and a payoff at the same time, because it can exploit sacrifice units that have when defeated effect to be able to benefit from the when defeated effect. It gives you a body, and then when it comes the time where the Battle Droid Legion is going to be defeated, he's going to be able to benefit from the double trigger, and that's a very powerful double trigger because you're getting 6 battle droids at the result, which is pretty nice. So I think it's a card that is quite decent in Thrawn's deck that I've been having a lot of fun playing with. Another honorable mention goes to Security Complex. Security Complex, I think we're seeing basically blue aggro decks sort of emerging. Security Complex is actually a very kind of, I'm not gonna say underrated. I don't like when people say underrated, because it was, I think, there's not the correct environment, but it's definitely a card that is waiting for its moment, because Security Complex is one of the best aggressive base in the game. The only problem is, like, playing an aggressive deck with blue is very difficult. Blue is really not a color that has a lot of strong aggressive cards in it. So playing Security Complex doesn't make a lot of sense. But now that we are saying Gar Saxon becoming a lot better, so you can now play Gar Saxon double blue, and you get access to Security Complex to really give yourself shield and stuff. Another good one is Kazuda Blue, that plays the 3/5 for 2 in space that you can remove the downside so you can attack. I forgot the name, but its card is very powerful. A big reason to be playing Kazuda Blue. And another reason is the Security Complex as well, because being able to, every time you play an aggressive deck that plays blue and you have the luxury to play blue, Security Complex is an amazing base for an aggressive deck, in my opinion. So that was basically my honorable mention. Let's move on to our number 10, OOM Series Officers. While it's not complicated, this card has 2 very good applications. The first one is obviously the Thrawn deck, where you get to have the when defeated effect that deals 4 damage to base, which is incredible, 4 damage to base. And you're also forcing a card to your opponent to kill, and you also get a 2/1 body. That is spectacular, obviously. So this card is really strong, and if you want to run some sort of Thrawn blue aggressive deck, this deck, in my opinion, is not necessarily the best way to run Thrawn, because Thrawn deploying on 6, and the blue color is still not an amazing card for aggressive deck. But if you are running this deck, this card is amazing in it. Another context in which I really like the OM Series Officer is obviously one of the best cards you can pull out of Invisible Hand. Once again, the 2-drop droids, you get to grab them from Invisible Hand, and that's really powerful. My number 9 goes to Survivor's Gauntlet. This card is pretty sweet in Gar Saxon, because you get to kind of move upgrades around, and the card is relatively tanky, and you get to pull it out of Triple Dark Raid. It's actually a very strong card to pull out of Triple Dark Raid, and for that reason alone deserved a number 9, while previously it was pretty much just not very playable. Now it's pretty good. I mean, Gar Saxon always existed, but basically this card is indirectly benefit from the Gar Saxon becoming a lot better. Moving on, we got the Malevolence. So Malevolence, kind of the same reason as I said earlier, is just Thrawn, and generally speaking, token generation. So I was to say that Set 4 has given us a lot of powerful ways to generate tokens, whether it's with the Kejini TIE Fighters, the one that gives you 2 TIE Fighters on turn 1. We also have, of course, the Vader Leader. We also have Thrawn, which can double up pretty much all the token generation that have Wind Infinite effect, and there's a lot of. So this makes so token generations are very strong. However, we didn't get, of course, any new good exploit cards. So to take advantage of this token generation, what better ways to do it but with exploit cards? And Malevolence is one of the best one that we got access to. Does that mean exploit is going to be competitive? I don't necessarily think so, but I definitely think that Malevolence is getting a lot better with this set. Next, we got Endless Legion. So Endless Legion has always been kind of like a meme card, never really working so well. But this card is it's only a matter of time until this card is going to get broken. I can guarantee you this. A card like this, always has strong potential, because if there's any ways in the game to kind of be able to avoid paying the cost of this card or strongly reducing the price of this card, then it can become very powerful. So we already had the Yoda combo that allows you to play it for free, but the Yoda combo is very difficult to set up. Requires a lot of condition, and as soon as your opponent knows about it, it kind of like it becomes a lot more difficult to use. However, we got in set 4 another way to basically play Endless Legion much faster, which is obviously the Star Arc. Basically, Endless Legion is by far the strongest card you can play with the Star Arc. Once you play the Star Arc, even if you do not play double green, you will still, basically Endless Legion is only going to cost you 8 resources, which is pretty amazing. And of course, once you play Endless Legion, you are almost guaranteed to win the game if your deck is built properly. So this is kind of a very powerful combo, and I think this is becoming like competitively viable. Doesn't mean it's going to be meta, I don't know, but for me it is competitively viable. I've showcased that combo in my hand green, my new hand green vehicle deck, and I think it's very sweet in this deck particular. Then there's Evidence of Crime. Of course, there is a lot of upgrades now, so by definition, upgrade removals become a lot better. Evidence of Crime is one of those upgrades. Upgrade removal whenever you play Spaceship and your opponent just play an upgrade on his Spaceship, and you go, so let's say my opponent goes turn 1 Spaceship, I go turn 1 Spaceship, my opponent just plays an upgrade on his dude, and then I play Evidence of Crime, I can steal his upgrade. That is such a massive swing that can just win you the game. So it's going to require a specific deck and a specific meta for this card to be good. But in that context, I think this card can be incredible, and this is why I put this at number 6. Number 5, we got B1 Security Team. I'm just not going to repeat myself. Invisible Hands, 2-cost droids are great, and B1 Security Team is the best 2-drop droids that the villainy has access to, so this is why it's getting into number 5. Then we got number 4, a card that nobody really talks about, but I think this card can be really good if the meta becomes very grindy. Right now the meta is extremely fast, extremely racy, but if the meta becomes very grindy, I can see Mon Mothma becoming a really good card, because obviously we got a lot more rebels, so now you got a 2-drop that can go and search for another 2-drop, and kind of like this gives you card selection. If you play a certain amount of rebels, it's just a 2-drop, the 1/3 that draws you a card. It's just pretty good. In my opinion, give you a bit of board presence, allow you to play around Power of the Dark Side. I played this card a lot in set 1 in my hand decks, and I basically got away from it because the hand deck started playing just too many non-rebels. But as we are getting more rebels, Mon Mothma undeniably benefits from that. Then we got on number 3, a new adventure, and the only reason why I'm putting this card in there is because of how good this card is in Kazuda Yellow. Kazuda Yellow looks like has been built for this card to work in it. There's just so many powerful synergies. Pretty much every single unit in the deck has some sort of synergies with the new adventure, and obviously the fact that it allows you to get back control of your AT hauler after it gets stolen is pretty incredibly powerful. So yeah, I'm putting this card on number 3. It's a card that everybody thought was very powerful, and then people started realizing that the card was just way too situational. But I think it's going to make a comeback in Kazuda Yellow. At number 2, there's a card that almost nobody ever plays. in Constructed, it's called Outlaw Corona, and the reason why it has chances to see play in this new set is because you can play it on turn 1 with Piet, and it is the cheapest capital ship in the entire game. So what's up with Outlaw Corona? So Outlaw Corona I don't think is good against everything. Obviously, if you're playing against a deck that has a lot of removal and really benefit from ramping, this card is absolutely counterproductive. However, if you're playing against an aggro deck that has a lot of, that likes to open up with a 3 health in space, then Outlaw Corona becomes very powerful. So whether this card is going to see play or not really going to depend on the meta, and obviously that would be in a Piet deck, so it's a very niche card, but it nevertheless, it came from being absolutely trash to actually be a viable option, and that's why I put it in number 2. And then number 1, probably the card that's 100% chance will see competitive play and was basically see almost no play. I mean, it was very, very niche. It is Arctant's Assault Cruiser. So why is this card so good? Because basically the main problem with that card was that it was very expensive. It had basically 2 major issues. The first issue is that Ambush in space has never been that good, because obviously in the previous meta we were more or less kind of 75% on the ground, 25% in space, or at best we were 66% on the ground and 33% in space. Now, pretty much every deck is sort of leaning towards going 50-50% between space and ground, which means that by definition, every single ambush unit in space is instantly becoming better. And Arctant is obviously one of them. So that's the first element. The second element that really makes this card a lot better than it used to is the fact that you can discount it. And Arctant, more than any other spaceship in the game, benefits from being discounted, because now you're really benefiting from the ramping effect. So whenever you are on 8 resources, basically being able to kill enemy units and ramping, that's not really that impactful. It doesn't really make that big of a difference because you already have 8 resources, so getting extra resource at this point doesn't really make that big of a difference. However, if you're playing Piet once again, and you get to discount that guys down to 6, while suddenly you're ramping from 6 to 7, which means that next turn you can play 8 drop and 9 drop if you have Piet. You get to play your Avenger on the turn after, or you get to play Devastator even faster, and that is just incredibly impactful. So Arctant is just better than it ever been because of Piet and because we're just in a space meta. So it came from a card that pretty much saw almost no play to one of the most powerful, one of the most auto-include spaceship if you're in Piet. I think if you're playing Piet, you have to play at least 2 copies of this card into your deck. So that's a big deal, coming from a card that sees no play to being pretty much one of the best staple in one of the strongest leaders in the set, and that's, in my opinion, is a pretty big leap forward for the deck. So thank you so much for following that video. If you got other ideas of cards that used to be bad that are now good, or cards that really are benefiting a lot from the set, feel free to put them in the comments below. I always like to get additional insights. And I hope you enjoyed that video, and maybe this list of cards gives you ideas for building new decks. There's just so many interesting options, and expect next week to see more of my deck list of things that I've been playing around in Jump to Lightspeed. Thank you so much for following that video. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.